What's going on? Today's guest on the Mo Air podcast is Eric Tellmann. Eric comes from Lakeland, Florida. He was a captain for Spirit Airlines, and now he gives back to his community and teaches kids how to get their glider rating. All right, Eric, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background.
After I got out of high school, I went in the Marine Corps. And in the Marine Corps, I did aviation support equipment maintenance. After I got out, I just finished up my ratings. I got my private pilot while I was in and finished up my ratings. And I worked everything from flying cargo to corporate jobs to eventually the regionals. I worked for many years for the regionals, and eventually I got on at Coletta Air, and I was flying 747-400s all over the world. Got furloughed from Coletta, ended up at Spirit, was there for almost 15 years, got furloughed. It was an amazing experience, all but it was great. I wouldn't change it for anything. But while I was at Spirit, my oldest son wanted to get into flying. At the time, he was 13, and flight schools were giving him the runaround because he was 13. Took him to a glider club and started him on his way. He sold at 14. After he sold, I went and got my glider commercial rating. And the day before his private pilot check ride, I did my CFI check ride, so I was able to sign him off. That's kind of awesome. How this all came about.
That's really cool, man. So first off, thank you for your service in the military. We really appreciate that. I was never a military guy. I went the law enforcement route, but I appreciate all y'all that went into the military. And, I appreciate the time you put in aviation as well, but giving back to the community is really awesome. And I bet that's really rewarding.
Yeah, it's really cool working with these kids because, we start with them in about 10th grade. I've seen some of them before that. And I literally watch them grow and I get to watch those phases and change of life with them and, all these different trips around the sun. And we watch them just mature. The next thing you know, they're a senior and they're going off on their own. And then we've influenced them and now they're going off to flight schools or they're doing this or they're doing that. And, a lot of it's because of the way we've influenced and made a difference in their lives.
That's awesome. So let's go back to the very beginning of Eric Tellmann's aviation, wonders. What was your first aviation memory and that kind of made you want to get into it?
Man, that first one was my stepdad. I was probably about 5 or 6 years old when my mom met him, and he took me flying in his Piper Archer. And at that point, I could fly a DC-10. I knew I could. I could fly anything I wanted at that point. I couldn't reach the rudder pedals, but I could do it. And it was just an addiction that you can't explain, that a 5-year-old wouldn't understand, but I understood it now that I'm 50.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel you there. I still can't reach the rudder pedals very often.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's what got me in it.
You were 5 flying in an Archer. How long did that last? Did that last up until you started flying, taking the controls and kind of getting the feel for it, or did that kind of go by the wayside until you got older?
It kind of went by the wayside because they had that bad economic recession in the 80s. And at that point, the plane was gone. The house was gone. I was working 2 jobs. I worked full time, almost full time, quite a lot in high school, just helping ends meet, things like that. And then I went in the Marine Corps, kind of removed me from that situation where I could work on things on my own. My mom and my dad did the best they possibly could. They did everything they could. But it just took me going to the Marine Corps to make things different for myself.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to help out as much as you can when life gets hard. And I understand that, but I'm glad that you found your way to do things for yourself.
Yeah. I soloed the day before I went to boot camp. So imagine soloing an airplane, being excited, and now you can't fly for 13 weeks while a bunch of guys are screaming in your face.
That's terrible, man.
That
so you
sucks.
have the highest euphoria you can think of at the time down to, the bottom of the ocean, just being treaded on by everybody. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't say what they used to call us in the academy, but it's lower than whale stuff is what they said.
Yes.
Yeah. So you soloed right before you went to boot camp, and then you had to put that on the back burner, obviously. You said you were in aviation in the military as well?
Yeah, I did aviation support equipment maintenance. So anything that touched an airplane, I fixed. Generators, air starts, tugs, weapons loaders. I mean, you name it, we fixed it. Hydraulic support units, air conditioners, anything that an airplane would use on the ground.
That's awesome. That's a lot of work that nobody really thinks about because they just see the airplane and they think, oh, the people in the airplane are the ones doing all the work, but it's really not. It's always the ground support, the flight
Right.
planning, the all those guys do most of the work. And then us as pilots, when we get in the airplane, we do
Fun
a lot
stuff.
of work as well, but it's also so much fun. Yeah. Almost doesn't feel like work.
Well, just like our, hydraulic Jennies, we called them, had 17 filters on it, and we would plug it into the airplanes so they could run the flight controls. Maintenance could do their things and run flight controls, clean fluids, things like that, while the airplane's just sitting there on the ground without the engines running. There's a lot of those support things like that we did.
Yeah. That's a lot of filters to be changing all the time, too.
Constant patch testing, checked, like we'd run hydraulic fluids through patches to see what color it was. It had to
That's
meet certain
wild.
standards or we'd have to swap them out.
That's insane, man. That's pretty cool, though. So,
Yeah, it was fun.
you did that in the military. What was like one of the coolest airplanes you got to be up close to while you were in the military?
I mean, the F-18s and all that other kind of stuff was really cool. But I got to be honest, the C-130s, I'd go up riding with those guys in the C-130s all the time, and we'd go out in a MOA and we'd start flying these box patterns. We'd be out for 4, 5, 6 hours, and we just watch F-18 after F-18 after helicopter or whatever, just coming right up to us, plugging into the airplane, refueling, and bailing out of there. And sometimes we'd come back and we do these low-level passes through the hills and stuff. And I mean, that was actually pretty cool because I could sit in the cockpit of those things and just ride with them. And being a private pilot already, the guys, I knew what was going on and they would always like encourage me and stuff. So a lot of encouragement from the pilots that were flying those Marine Corps pilots.
That's really awesome. I would love to be a fly on the wall watching that happen.
That's how I figured out crosswind landings, was sitting in like an observer seat in the cockpit. I go, oh, wing down opposite rudder. That makes sense now because
Yeah.
it's so big you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, because their control movements are huge. So for everybody listening that doesn't know what a MOA is, it stands for Military Operations Area. And if you look on a VFR sectional, you can see them lined out. But that is special areas where are usually near military bases where they fly different types of missions for trainings.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's fast forward a little bit from there because I mean that was awesome. That would be so much fun. Uh, Once you got out of the military, did you immediately go back into aviation trying to fly, or did
I
you?
did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I moved to Farmington, New Mexico to go to a college there to finish up some ratings, and it wasn't for me. So I got out of that college after a couple months and went to Houston and had just some friends down there that I stayed with, and we started working on more ratings down there, and eventually finished my ratings up back home in Denver, where I grew up.
That's cool. Yeah. So I keep hearing Houston a lot. The last guy I talked to flew down in Houston as well. What would you say was different for you about flying down there than flying where you're at now?
The weather, the weather in Houston is great for IFR training. There's a lot of low vis days, a lot of, like in Denver, it's clear all the time. It's hard to get IFR time there. It's very difficult to. And if it is, you need de-icing equipment or something else because that's the only way you're going to get it. But in Houston, there's always clouds. There's always, certain times of the year, low overcast, things like that. So it's very good for training for instrument and stuff.
That's cool. I never would have thought that. Coming from the Midwest, I see Texas and I think sunny, hot, windy.
Well, you're on that Gulf down in Houston, and you get all the inshore breezes from the Gulf, and it pushes all that warm Gulf air over the cool land, and vice versa. And creates all that fog.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I guess I've never really been down there, so I haven't had to think about it. But I would have
Yeah,
thought Colorado, but then that makes sense when you say that if you have instrument or IFR conditions, you're going to need de-icing equipment. So
yeah,
because your altitude's higher, it's colder.
yeah.
Yeah,
You only get IFR in the wintertime in Colorado.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Uh, was the altitude that you flew at in Colorado a little different for you in training than it was down in like Houston or whatever?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like if in Houston, if you're at you're at sea level basically, and if you want to get up to get some wind to get a good tailwind, you want to go up to 9, 10,000 feet. Yeah, that's no problem. It's going to take a little bit of time, but you're going to get there. But in Colorado, you're already taking off at over 5,000 feet. Everywhere you go, you're at 10,000 feet. And it's different oxygen. Now you're starting to worry about oxygen and this and that, and flying through the Rockies, 14.5 peaks. I remember doing a trip with my dad. We were in a 172 XP, so 195 horsepower, 172 with a constant speed prop. And we went from Front Range Airport in Denver to Laughlin, Nevada, and we only broke 10,000 feet 2 times to get over Wolf Creek Pass and another pass.
Dang,
The rest of that was just cutting through mountain valleys, and it was just an amazing trip. And we had such a good time.
that would have been awesome. But I bet the entire time you're wondering, like, where in the heck am I going to put this down if I have an engine out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much now everywhere out there, and the way the terrain is, it's pretty simple. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds awesome. So that's kind of cool. You got to fly in multiple different areas early on in your flying career as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So where did you go to first whenever you got to your commercial type flying?
The first job I ever had was at Great Lakes. We flew Beech 1900s all over the Rocky Mountains. That was a really good job. The company itself it's Great Lakes. The pilot group was amazing. The people were amazing. I've still got a lot of friends today from there, and that was 25 plus years ago that I flew there. It
That's
was cool.
awesome.
And a hand flown twin engine turboprop all over the Rocky Mountains with no autopilot.
Yeah.
Man, your skill set became on par fast.
Yeah. I don't know how many people can say they've done that nowadays.
Right, like we're hand flying approaches into Telluride with 11,000 foot approach minimums. And as you're flying at minimums, flying along, you've got mountain peaks that you're passing, and the winds are changing every time you go past a mountain peak. Depending upon the wind direction, you're constantly just working that localizer like no tomorrow. It's not just like set it, forget it, constant wind the whole way down like you would in the flatlands or something.
Yeah. That would be awesome, but also kind of nerve wracking the first few times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was fun. You get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. You say that, but I'm sure the first time you were white knuckling it.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're kind of like, this is tough.
Like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
I bet the views were fantastic, though.
they were amazing. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful through there. It didn't matter if it was summer, winter, and we didn't have cell phones
Yeah.
like back then either. So, like as a first officer, I would have to run. It would be snowing in Telluride, and there's this big dip to the runway. This little like building that the people came out of to get in the airplane to. I'd have to go inside, call flight service on a payphone, get our clearance, get out to the airplane, do the passenger brief, shut the door, get de-iced, take off, and meet all this stuff within that time frame. And if something happened, I'd have to run back in, call 1-800-WX-BRIEF on a payphone again and cancel our clearance, It's just like, it was different. We
Well,
had a maintenance issue, we dealt with it, or we had to go back to the gate, find a payphone to call maintenance.
hopefully they provided the quarters.
Yeah, oh yeah, you could expense it
Yeah.
without a receipt.
Yeah. Shoot. Some of those days you probably had to like do extra weight and balance for the amount of quarters you took with you just in case.
Yeah, we probably did. It's just, man, those days were different. We were built different back then as pilots.
Yeah.
We didn't have GPSs like that. Everything was VOR to VOR. Like taking off out of Vail, you're crossing one radial to intercept another, to follow another one out, to climb into a hold, and then to head back to Denver after all that.
Yeah. That
It was
sounds
all
wild.
non-radar. It was cool. It was
Yeah.
cool.
That would be awesome. I got lucky enough whenever I was doing my instrument rating that UCM has a VOR just north of it. So there's a VOR approach that is an arc, right? And I'm
Nice.
sure you know those.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
But a lot of people don't get to experience those. And in that turn 10, twist 10, time it, and trying to keep your distance the same the whole time.
Yep.
It gets tough sometimes.
It does. It gets really tough.
So I couldn't imagine doing that in an airplane that's flying, almost twice the approach speed as the 172 that I was in trying to learn.
Yeah, we were doing 160 to 140 on approaches and that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was not. uh, Oh, no, rip the wings off at that point, probably.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. No, it was a good time though. So I'm just glad that
Yeah.
I learned a little bit of the older type stuff. And I did come into aviation whenever the G1000s were coming out, and we had three-axis autopilot and all that stuff. But our
Yeah.
school also had a lot of old round gauges still, so we learned
Yeah.
instrument in both, which was really nice.
Good old sword fighting days.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good time, And I also learned that a lot of people are never going to see this again either. But if you had an ADF, you could tune into like local AM stations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of our airplanes had them, and we all carried a list with us of what stations were what. I remember one time we were in the 7-4, and I remember we were going into, but the captain wanted to get the last 5 minutes of a football game before we landed, so we went into holding for 5 minutes to look at an item,
Yeah.
and then we got the last part of the game. He's like, "All right, we're good, let's go."
Oh, hopefully his team won, so the landing was
It
good.
did, so we
Yeah.
were good.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want a mad pilot coming down landing an airplane,
Oh yeah, man, just the freedom of those days is just gone now.
right?
Between ADSB and FOQA systems and everything else, you know,
Yeah.
everybody knows what you're doing.
Yeah, all the time. Big Brother's always
Mhm.
watching now.
Yep,
But it's good as well because it adds a level of safety that, wasn't
for
there back
sure,
then. And
for
it
sure.
all of the new systems that we have add a lot assistance on the workload of the pilots. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
yep,
those as well.
absolutely.
So moving forward, after you were doing VOR to VOR in a twin engine, flying through the mountains, doing all that cool cowboy type flying. Where did you go after that?
I went to Guam to take a job flying overseas in Guam, and I got there, and it was supposed to be in a shorts 360, and I got there and it was a Cherokee 6. So I punched out of that one real quick.
Yeah, that's a big difference there.
Yeah, I got out of there and I left and I went to Virginia because my uncle was not feeling well. And I moved out there and I got a job flying single pilot in a King Air 90 flying skydivers.
Well, that's fun.
That was phenomenal,
Yeah,
phenomenal place. I loved it. And then eventually they needed a pilot at a corporate company because they didn't have enough guys that were time requirement in King Airs to meet DoD requirements for a contract in a King Air 200. So I met those requirements. So I was flying as a captain for them. And then I got pushed into the Falcon 10. So one of the first jets I flew was that Falcon 10, and that airplane's amazing.
yeah.
And then I was flying Navajos and stuff, and just did some flying in Virginia. And then I met my wife at about that time frame. I ended up getting a job eventually back into Part 121. I got on with Colgan, and everything you've read about that place in the news is pretty much about right.
Oh, jeez.
After a year, I'm like, my training contract was up after a year. I left there and went to Shuttle America. And I was flying Beech 1900s at Colgan. Now I'm flying a Saab 340 with Shuttle America. And then I stayed there for a long time. Then we had the merger with Republic, and I started flying the 175, and I stayed there about 8 years. And I just said, I need to make a change. I just felt like everything was just stagnant. And so I left there and I went to Coletta to fly the 747.
That's
But
really cool.
that airplane's sick.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So you've moved around in a bunch of different airframes. Do you think that helped you out in your aviation career, or do you think that
Oh yeah,
it would have been better if you got to one and stayed there quicker?
everything's better. More experience you get, the better. They're not all the same, but a bleed valve is a bleed valve, and a hydraulic pump is a hydraulic pump. Whether they
Right.
call it one thing, they call it pump A, pump B, pump yellow, pump green. It doesn't matter. It's still a hydraulic pump, and it still does the same thing: gear, flaps, and steering and brakes.
There you go. Yeah, well, hopefully, if somebody out there is listening to this and they're trying to plan out, their route to whatever airframe they want or with whatever career they want, they take that into consideration. Don't turn down a job just because it's not the airframe you want.
Well, and one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make in aviation is they feel they need to follow colors. I have to work for Delta. Okay, but you live in Orlando and there's not a base. United has a base, Southwest has a base, Spirit had a base, Frontier has a base. So why lose 5 days a month commuting when you can just work for another company that flies the exact same airplane that's going to give you the quality of life that you want? Work for the company that gives you your quality of life, not for the company that puts a certain, you know, colors on their airplane.
That's good advice.
You live in Atlanta, go for Delta. It's the right place for you.
There you go. You know, that's a switch that a lot of people are making nowadays too. Uh, Obviously, we are from different generations, and then now there's a new generation after mine coming up through the workforce, and it seems
Yeah.
like it's been slowly moving more towards work-life balance. And what do you want for your home life versus what are you going to give to your company?
Right. When you live in base too, it's easy to pick up overtime. It's easy, I mean, Spirit gave us 200% pay.
Wow,
Before our pay cuts, I was at 312 an hour. And so that's 624 an hour, minimum of 5 hours, of pay per day.
that's
So
good.
yeah, and they're not the highest paid either. I mean, there's a lot of other places that'll pay higher and do similar things.
Yeah, that's a little over 3 grand for your day there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome.
Just sit there and lick a window and watch the clouds go by, you know?
Yeah, did you taste the clouds when you looked the window?
In a glider, I do.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
We're always 500 feet below.
Oh, right, yeah. And so you get that one that just popped out of nowhere. I don't know where that happened.
I don't know where that came from. I can
Right,
still
yeah.
see through it
Right. It's not a cloud. It's just a little fog. You'll be all
straight down, but I could see through it.
right. That's awesome. So, so you touched on the skydiving thing being a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Another question for you is, um, how do you feel about people that are just chugging along as hard as they can, trying to make it to an airline, and they don't stop and smell the roses where they're at, building that time?
Well, some of the mistakes that we see is people, the financials. I'm seeing first officers that I flew with that had $200,000 to $300,000 in student loans because of Embry Riddle or this school or that school that they felt they had to go through. Like if you go to Harvard and you're a lawyer, you're going to be looked upon highly. But if you go to your local community college and become a lawyer, they're going to go, But in aviation, no one cares. All they want is a heartbeat and your ratings done. They don't care what the airplane looked like. They don't care, what it smelled like. They don't care. They just know that it says C-172. That's all they care about. They don't know
Right.
if it's an A model. They don't know if it's an M model. They don't know. It doesn't matter. Get your times, get your ratings as cheaply and as safely as possible, and try to get well-rounded experience coming in. We've got that plan now with the gliding. We'll get we can get, my son we'll get through all of his ratings for $29,000 for powered CFI.
That's insane.
There's a lot of things that people don't understand about gliders and the rules and flight time and things like that. It's no different than a powered airplane. There's not a percentage or any of this garbage.
Yeah, I don't understand any of it either. So let's get into a little bit of that. So you work at a glider operations area and you teach kids how to get their glider rating, and then they move on eventually into powered flight as well. Do you guys do powered flight for like the tow planes there, or is it just
Yeah,
they
yeah, we
only learn
do.
in the glider? Okay.
So here's what's amazing. Now, what are your, like, for example, for you, what are your restrictions as a private pilot? Who can pay for the airplane?
Well, me, really.
Right,
And
you.
then
That's it,
I have
right?
to pay my pro rate of share at
Right,
minimum.
half the cost, things
Yep.
like that.
Yeah.
But think about this: the tow plane towing a glider. The tow pilot is not going to split that cost with the tow pilot with its glider, right?
Right.
So the FAA put a carve out in for tow pilots that you can hold a private pilot rating in tow plane operations and be compensated. You can be paid to fly the tow plane at age 17. You can start making money in a tow plane. Isn't that crazy?
That's really awesome.
And it's 100% legal by the FAA.
That's I've never heard that one, but now I'm going to look it up because that's really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. And different clubs do different things. Some don't charge for tow, some don't pay tow pilots at all. Some commercial operators will pay their tow pilots like $150 a day or something or whatever, or it just depends upon the tows they do. Some clubs say, hey, come here and fly and we'll put so much money on your account per tow. And so everybody's different about the way tow pilots can be compensated. So once you have your private pilot rating and you have either 200 hours total time or 100 hours PIC powered, you can get your tow endorsement and start operating under tow pilot. And that's how you can build a lot of flight time for free.
Yeah. I never have heard or thought about that, but Now I'm going to look into it because that sounds awesome. I don't even care if they pay me like actual money as long as I can build flight time. That sounds cool.
Right. Yep. Yep. And there's always flying clubs looking for people to tow. As long as you have a tail wheel, most flying clubs have a Piper Pawnee. So if you ever wanted to fly one of those, it's a great time to do it. You can just get a high performance endorsement. They're usually 230 to 260 horsepower, depending on how they have it equipped. And get your tail wheel endorsement done. Go get your tow endorsement. A glider CFI can do it, and then you're up and off on your own.
That's really cool. Yeah, I got a tail wheel. I do not have high performance yet. That's one that I've been looking at getting, but that would be awesome to do.
Yeah, go find a glider club. They can get you all set up.
Heck yeah, there is actually one here in the area. I'm pretty sure, like really close area.
Yeah. They're all over the place. So go to ssa.org, Soaring Society of America, and click on where to fly, and you'll see a live interactive map on everywhere you can go to learn how to fly.
That's awesome. Okay, well, let's get back into your teaching on this soaring stuff. How old do you have to be to start doing the glider training versus in a powered flight? And then how old do you have to be to get your license in it?
So you can be any age to start. We typically recommend around between 12 and 13 to start. And age 14, you can solo. So now you're starting to build PIC time. And the flight time you put in your logbook is flight time. It's total time. It's just the same as with the powered airplane. You just list it under a glider column instead of single engine land. It's a different, category class, that whole thing. And then so you can be soloed for 2 years. And on your 16th birthday, you can turn around and get your private pilot rating on your 16th birthday. And then now you become a private pilot. And then so when you start flying powered, it's more of an add-on because you're already a private pilot, right?
Yeah.
You're never a student pilot in a powered airplane if you're already rated as a private pilot in a glider, because your license cannot revert back. So when you want to go, let's say, for example, the kids that I work with through Lakeland Aero Club, we were soloing them in 4 hours in Cubs once they started flight training, because they already had all that experience from the glider.
Yeah, all the fundamentals are there.
Right. And at that point, they could just take the Cub and go on a cross country if they wanted to. There's no cross country endorsements. There's nothing, because you're a private pilot. The only endorsement you needed was, I think it's A72 or A75. It's the one to operate as PIC when you don't hold appropriate category and class. You just can't carry a passenger with you until your check ride's done, but you have all those same privileges, pretty much all the same privileges.
That's really cool. I haven't heard of that either. Like I said, I don't know anything about soaring or gliding. I honestly, this is going to sound ridiculous. I don't know what control surfaces are inside the glider. Can you walk me through that a little bit?
It's all the exact same thing as a powered airplane. Ailerons, elevator. You have speed brakes and dive brakes. Dive brakes will be out the bottom. Speed brakes will be out the top. And other than that, it's identical. A lot of gliders will have gear that you can put up and down. Some are fixed. Some will have flaps. Some will not have flaps. The ones that have flaps are normally negative too. They'll go up about -8 degrees.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So when there's 2 speeds we really focus on when we're training. One is called, your L over D, your maximum glide distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say, we'll just say we're flying a Grobe, and a Grobe 103, a 2-seater, and your L over D speed is 60, right? So that gives us a 38-to-1 glide ratio. So if we're at 5,000 feet, I can go 38 miles forward.
Dang.
About that, right? And so the other speed I'm going to worry about is called minimum sink, and that's behind it. It's slower. Minimum sink allows us to stay up long without worrying about how far we go forward. We'll not go as far as L over D. The minimum sink we use to stay in thermals. We want to go slow. We want to get in that rising column of air, and we want to spiral up inside of that column of air. So, but if we're doing faster, then our circles are bigger. We're not going to stay in the lift core. So, but once we get out of the lift core and we want to go to our next thermal, I'm going to pop those flaps into negative, and the glider is just going to take off like a rocket, and it's going to go.
That's awesome. So in my mind, which this is not going to sound like the way you teach it at all, because it's not technical terms for gliders, I'm guessing, basically you're getting into slow flight in the thermal because you got more drag, you're going slower, but you're getting a little more lift out of it. And
right?
then
Because you're in the lift longer.
yeah, and then once you get
Yep.
out, you throw that negative flaps in, and that just gives you a lot of forward motion.
Right. And what we want to look at, though, it's called speed to fly. What speed are we going to fly out of the thermal? So you run into, if you're just having fun and you just want to go enjoy the day, I'll fly around at L over D all day. But if I really want to do a cross country and get moving, I need to find a speed I can fly at faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 3 thermals. I'm going to take the average strength in knots with 1 knot, 2 knot, 3 knot, 5 knot climb. Let's say it's a 3 knot climb. I'm going to go to my McCready calculator and I'm going to put that in, and it's going to say your airplane, your weight with your polar, you're going to need to fly at 75, and that will maximize my course time and how fast I can fly forward. So if we're racing, we're flying McCready speeds. If we're just having fun, I'm flying my L over D. So it's
Yeah.
all predicated on what's the purpose of that day, what's the purpose of that flight. Now here's something that'll blow your mind too. Do you know you can fly a glider VFR in Class A airspace?
I did not. Do they have
Yeah.
radios?
Yeah, radios. You have to have a transponder, all that kind of stuff. They open up what's called wave windows, and the wave window is a defined area that goes all the way up, however high ATC says they want it to be. It could be 60,000 feet. It could be less. And you just put some oxygen on, and you hit that wave window, and we'll fly up the same glider that you see my son racing in the videos. We can take it out to California and go up 30, 40,000 feet in it.
That's insane. I've never even thought about a glider being up above maybe like 15 to 20,000 feet.
Yeah, I think out by Reno, there's some good wave windows out there. There used to be one out near Denver that went up to, I think, 25,000 or 28, somewhere in there. Yeah, there's wave windows all over the place. But now we're in Florida. We don't see much over 7,000 feet.
Right. Yeah.
My son hit
wild.
8,300 and broke a 40-year state record with the altitude net gain, total gain. But yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So another weird question for you is you keep talking about these thermals. How do you know where they're at? How do you find them? Is there certain things you look for on the ground? Is there certain things you look for on the weather?
So imagine this. Close your eyes. Okay. Now you're running through a forest. What are you going to hit?
A tree.
A tree. There's your thermal.
Okay.
Now you open your eyes back up because you get a tree.
Right. Yeah.
So that's exactly what it is.
Okay. That's fair.
That's on what's called a blue day. We'll do that.
Okay.
Right. A blue day, you just find them. You just hit them.
Yeah.
Now, on a thermal day, now remember the temperature dew point is when they meet, we get fog, right?
Yes.
So in a perfect environment, let's say the lapse rate is 2 degrees Celsius. If you have the temperature of 10 and the dew point of 20, that's a 10 degree split, right?
Mm-hmm.
Divide that by 2 degrees Celsius. The cloud base should be at 5,000 feet. You should have thermals from the cloud up to 5,000 feet.
Okay.
But it depends now. But what you really want is a non-standard lapse rate. The more unstable the air is, the better opportunity you have for lift, which typically gets too unstable. It creates thunderstorms, right?
Right.
So when you see these puffy clouds outside, on the sunny side of the cloud, let's say that the sun is to the west, just a little bit to the west, right? It's about 3, 4 o'clock in the day, and you've got the sun shining down. Here's your cloud. The lift is going to be on the sunny side of the cloud. The sink is going to be on the dark side of the cloud.
Okay.
So you can't have this rotation like this constantly under a cloud. You're going to get to this and you're going to spiral up. Now, if you ever look at the clouds and you see how they get those real long cloud streets, we call them, that looks like a row of clouds that goes for miles. Get on the sunny side of that cloud street and you can run that cloud street nonstop without having a thermal, and you can just ride it all the way up.
That's insane.
Yeah, especially when you have these 21, 22 meter wingspans. They're 50, 60 to 1 glide ratio. Our ASW 20s that my 2 sons are racing are about 43, 45 to 1. And when you get under that, you just get this nice 200-300 feet a minute climb and just keep running and running and running down the cloud street.
That would be awesome. So have you ever got to a spot where you were hitting thermals and you were flying around and then you couldn't get back to your start spot?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So you just
I did
find a place to put it down and call somebody, or what?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. I did it in Georgia once, and I've done it in Dade City, Florida once. The lift just let out, and it just quit, and could not find anything. And so we have what we call the 3-2-1 rule, right? 3,000 feet, I'm looking hard for a thermal. I've got a field in sight. By 2,000 feet, I've got 2 fields in sight, and I am pushing hard to find a thermal. I'm trying to find color diversity, right?
Okay.
I'm trying to find a forest next to a field where that color exchange might create, sun and heat, or white roofs. White roofs will have a lot of reflective heat compared
Okay.
to black that absorbs it, right?
Yeah.
So, so you're trying to find sources, a ground thermal that I'm going to be able to get into to get up. And then, so if those let out, then at 1,000 feet, at 2,000 feet, I'm looking at both fields. I've overflown both of them. I'm looking at them from an angle to see what, if we've got slope in the field, if it's a hill, what the conditions are. I'm looking for something with a solid color, like a solid color green or a solid color brown. Because once you think about your lawn, when you look at your lawn, it's all green, right? But what's a different color? Your house, the road, ditches, trees, shrubs, all those things tell you there's hazards there. So if
Yeah.
you can find a solid color, you're good. And then once you get over the field at 1,000 feet AGL, you're committed to landing. Gear down, set up your pattern, fly an entry into the field, land in the field. You want to fly as slow as you can and tail first, then the main.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you get down there and you realize it's corn, a big tall crop, you're going to get the airplane slower. But before a wing drop, if a wing drops into the corn, you're going to ground loop and it's going to break the tail off, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm right at the top of that corn and I push forward into it, I get equal pressure on all the wings. You're going to stop really fast, but the airplane won't get damaged at all.
Huh. So the wing loading on those, I'm going to guess, is pretty crazy for the weight of it.
Yeah, well, typically you want to see between 8 and 9 to 1. 8 to 9 pounds. But depending upon if we're running water or not, then that will change the wing loading.
Okay. And we're just going to keep going to these rabbit holes because I'm learning here. Okay. I like it. So you say when you're running water or not, is there like a belly pod that holds water for extra weight for certain reasons, or?
The wings, we'll put,
Okay.
like, for example, my ASW20 that I have, it weighs about 500 pounds. And I weigh, I'm right about 240. Let's just say 250 to keep it simple, right? So that puts us at 750. The max weight of that airplane is 1,000 pounds. I have 250 pounds of water now I can add to the wings. So if my L over D is 60, and that gives me 45 to 1, if I add 250 more pounds of weight, in order for me to get 45 to 1, I now have to fly 70.
Okay.
And so 55 is min sync, 60 is my L over D. Now 70, if when I increase the weight, 70 is now my L over D, and 65 is now my min sync. I have to raise all the speeds in order to maintain the same L over D. It's pretty crazy, right?
That is crazy.
But
See,
before I land, I want to get that weight down. So after I finish the day, I'm going to push 2 levers forward, and 250 pounds of water is going to just drain out the bottom of my airplane while I'm flying.
that's great. How long does that take usually?
It doesn't take but a couple minutes.
Really?
It just depends on how much you have in there.
So whenever you're looking for a field, like say you run out of lift, right? You can't find a thermal and you do your 3-2-1. At what point are you dumping that water if you have it in there?
If I know I'm not getting lift, or if I'm struggling in lift, even if I come off tow and it's too weak, because when you add weight to the airplane, it's harder to thermal up. So you have to find a balance of how much weight do I want to be at? What are the thermals forecasted at? It's this big mathematical thing you're kind of looking at. And the second I get off tow and realize conditions are worse than I thought, I'm dumping the water right there.
Okay. So it's an early decision then.
Right, right. And if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know I'm not getting lift anymore and I have the risk of landing out and I need to stay up as long as I can, maybe to catch a cycle, because you'll get lift, it'll go away, it'll come back depending upon the sun. It could be a high level cloud passing through, and I know it's going to pass. I know the sun's going to come back out. I'll be able to get more heating because the sun is a lot of what creates lift. So I may dump that water and wait for the sun to come back out, but now I'm going to fly slower the rest of the day.
yeah. Yeah. Well, so if you're racing, that's when it really becomes an issue. If you're just having fun, it probably isn't that big of an issue, correct?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Usually, if I'm just out having fun, I'm not carrying water.
Yeah, that's fair because you're getting more glide out of less speed, and you can just have fun anyway.
Yep.
That's
And
awesome.
usually, when we tow, we're released at 2,000 feet.
Really. So you fly up to 2,000 feet, and you stay slightly above the tow plane. Is that correct?
Usually, we try to stay at the same level of the tow plane.
Okay.
I usually put his wheels on the horizon in front of me. Now, you can
Okay.
do high tows, low tows, where you're below the wake,
Yeah.
things like that. We actually do a training maneuver called boxing the wake,
Okay.
where you'll come, like if here's a tow plane, you come down, then you go to the left, you come through the wake, and you'll see it shake, then you come out. We'll go to the left and then up, and we have to go around the wake without touching it, right, while we're on tow, and then back up through the wake. And you have a 50-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
So in some of these training gliders, 60, 70 feet.
Yeah.
So, we're going quite a ways out to get away from that. And then basically to the FAA, you do that on your FAA check ride, and it also demonstrates that your controllability and understanding of the tow as well.
Right.
We worry about rope breaks, the rope breaking.
Yep.
So we actually practice and train releasing from the tow plane at 200 feet on takeoff.
Oh,
And we
that's
turn
slow.
around and come right back. Yeah, the
Wait,
FAA
wait, time
does it
out.
to you on your check ride.
Did you say you turn around and come back at
Yeah,
200 feet?
Yeah.
That's insane. Okay. So that's
You can see some
100%
videos of
different
it in
than
my
everything
stuff.
else. Yeah. That's way different than powered flight. If you're at 200 feet, you're not even doing the 30-30. You're just going straight,
Oh, yeah.
If you lose an engine, obviously.
Yeah, and we come down about 100 feet a minute, maybe 120. So you have just under 2 minutes to get back from 200 feet off the end of the runway.
That's crazy. That's actually quite a long time for what I was thinking the sink rate would be, but 2 minutes seems like a decent amount of time. You'd have to catch it real quick though.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, a 2,000-foot release, you got about 15 to 20 minutes to find a thermal, and you're back on the ground. Well, about 10 minutes to find a thermal because we had 1,000 feet. You're running the pattern.
Yeah. That's pretty
That's
cool.
pretty cool.
That is
Yeah.
really awesome, man. So another thing, just from talking to you, that I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think with your students, that's really, really going to help them out when they get into powered flight is emergency procedures. Like,
Yes.
it sounds like you're constantly doing emergency procedures just in a normal
Yep.
flight. So
Every flight's an engine failure,
yeah.
a real one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You lost your engine the second you pull that little yellow knob.
I've never heard that, but yes, that is 100% correct. So yeah, I bet the students that come into powered flight they kill it on those.
Yeah, because we're teaching them how to do it the way we are, and they are actually getting experience that keeps them calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old son passed his check ride May 16th, and within a week and a half, he was racing in his first contest, and he landed in a field. His first land out in a field. In the middle of Georgia in some farmer's field. It was a 2,500-foot field with an 80-foot obstacle, and he dropped it right in, right with the rows, did everything the way we trained him to. And he goes, I pulled up, and because the first one you're always nervous about, right? You're nervous how people are going to react, that peer pressure and everything.
Right, yeah.
And I pull up, and I'm like, how'd it go? And he's like, that monkey's off my back.
Yeah.
He goes,
That's
now I'm
awesome.
comfortable with it. Let's go do it again.
Right.
Like, no, let's not.
Oh, that would be awesome. Just having that safety factor for your kids, I bet gives you a lot of peace of mind as well.
Yeah, because like for example, when my oldest son just was starting his power transition, he was just waiting on time, on his age to take his check ride. And there's a new instructor that came out there, and he went up with him, and he needed another 90-day endorsement. Instructor said, all right, well, let me go fly with you and let's see where you're at, and I'll get you another endorsement. 20 minutes later, they're coming back, and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I don't know what just happened, but I'm signing him off. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, Steven's like, oh, I thermaled the 172 back to the airport. He pulled the engine on him and he thermaled it about 9 or 10 miles. The conditions just happened to be that good at that time.
Yeah.
He just 2,000 feet just thermaled right up to cloud base and just worked the clouds the whole way back to the airport.
That's insane. So he saw puzzle pieces that normal powered pilots aren't going to even looking for.
Yep. Would not even know that existed.
Yeah. And he just put them together like, hey, this is a short wing glider at this point. I'm going to try to get it up as high as I can to get back.
Yep, absolutely. And, it just, the envelope that it opens you up to and opens your minds to, you lose a lot of these fears and you lose a lot of these things that we think are bad or are, or things we shouldn't be doing. Like here's a great example. When you're doing slow flight, your flight instructor tells you no more than 10 degrees of bank, right? 15 degrees of bank in slow flight.
Yeah.
It will, in the gliders, we're showing you how to do 60 to 70 to 80 degrees of bank at slow flight to stay in a thermal without falling out of the sky and spinning uncontrollably. There's safe ways of doing it. You just have to know how, and you have to know the limits.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're basically right on the edge of an accelerated stall at that point. If you got your wings turned and you're slow. So you guys are just riding that line on an accelerated stall, climbing up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I mean, we have buffers in there and stuff like that we stay away from. But the wings are the high aspect ratio wing is just built different and it flies different than a wing like in a Cessna.
So another question that I have about the glider itself is the wing. I just spaced on the different types. There's the one that's symmetrical, right? It's like a aerobatic type wing where it's the same profile top and bottom, and then you have the one that has the
there's a specific.
I can't remember the names of those.
I can't remember the name off the top of my head of the wing manufacturer. They all follow the same design.
Yeah.
If you look at the side cut, older Schweitzers built in the 1950s are just like a picture out of a private pilot manual, the way the wing looks. And the way that these glider wings look were almost identical to the Airbus. It had the top concave top, and then the bottom kind of comes up and cuts back down.
Yeah.
Most of them are built that way just by design.
So it's like a cupping wing the whole time.
Yeah, and it depends. Some have flaps, most don't have flaps. It depends on what you're wanting to do. Like a club class glider will have flaps, and standard class don't have flaps, and they have all these different categories. And when you go to races, there's a standard 15 meters, there's 20 meters, there's standard class, club class. They have multi-place. I mean, they have all these different types of racing contests.
All right, so once again, I'm learning. Don't be mean to me in the comments, okay? When I hear a race, I'm thinking, just full throttle. You guys are trying to be as fast as possible, trying to get to the checkpoints first. What does a glider race look like? Is it just distance, or is there checkpoints? Or
it depends on what type of race you're doing. If it's like an assigned area task or a racing task.
Okay.
With the assigned area task, they'll put a waypoint. And it might be like a 20-mile ring around that waypoint or a 10-mile. And usually have like 3 to 5 different waypoints. And they'll give you a minimum time and a maximum time. Typically, in a regional, a minimum time might be 2.5 hours, maximum of 4. And then you could have like a minimum of 130 miles with a maximum of 250. And it's whoever pushes the deepest, the fastest with this logarithm is the person who wins the day.
Okay.
And it's like in sports class, though, it's also predicated on a handicap. So let's say like a VW bus and a Ferrari race from LA to Miami. Well, the Ferrari's going to win, right?
Right, yeah.
But what if we took the time and followed the miles and imposed a penalty on the Ferrari, but gave a bonus to the VW bus? You're going to have the difference. And so now it comes down to skill set. Who took the best turns? Who missed the most lights? And same thing with the glider. You have like the thermals and this and that. And you could have some glider built in the 50s racing against this really super advanced JS5, this $300,000-$400,000 glider, compared to the guy racing in a $7,000 126. Well, the people developing the contest have to keep all this in mind when they build the task, and it has to be the highest and lowest performing gliders.
That's cool. I was actually going to say that it goes back to skill level at that point.
Yeah, it's like when my son Steven flew in the World Championships in Poland, 4 days in a row, he did 500-kilometer flights, which is over 300 miles all over Europe, all through Poland.
That's a lot of flying in one day, especially with no engine.
Yeah, I mean, he'll stay out 7.5, 8 hours.
Dang, I bet the fatigue at the end of that was crazy though.
Oh yeah, you could see it wearing on him day in and day out. And
Yeah.
the other thing too you have to worry about is staying hydrated.
I bet, yeah.
Because every time your body warms up and cools off and warms up and cools off, it squeezes water out of your system, and you want to pee it out. Well, think about in a glider, you're constantly up down, which is warm cold, so that dehydration factor wears on you faster than if just sitting in a Cessna for 3 hours at 4,000 feet in one temperature.
Right. And I'm guessing since you're trying to find the light side of the cloud most of the time, there's a lot of radiation heat in there as well.
Oh yeah, it gets hot.
I bet.
But we
Because they're
have air
mostly bubble
conditioners.
canopies, correct?
Yeah, just a big bubble plastic piece.
Yeah.
And we do have an air conditioner in there. It's manual though.
Okay.
You open the window and stick your hand out and the air comes in.
It's like the old wing windows on the trucks, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then when you do that, you're hurting your performance because it's like having a speed breakout. So you
Right,
got to
yeah.
compromise.
Well, you just got to get a smaller hand, No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, we used to call that 260 AC in the old trucks. You'd open that wing window and flip it out and go 2 wing windows at 60 miles an hour,
That's great.
Yeah, it's all redneck terminology.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's insane. I didn't know they had windows either. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a little like DV type window that you can just kind of pull open, a little side window you can pull open.
That's really cool, man.
Some have a little scoop on it, things like that.
So you guys fly all across the United States in these competitions, I'm guessing?
Yes. We just raced in Cordele, Georgia, and my youngest son, Jack, is going to be racing in Dallas, just south of Dallas in Midlothian, Texas, with Texas Soaring Association. It's going to be the last week of July.
Well, that's cool.
If that's anywhere close to you, come on down. It's worth coming down for a day or two to see it.
Well,
There's about 62 gliders that'll be towed up within about an hour window, and they all hang over the airport. It looks like buzzards at a landfill.
Wait, so they all
come
circle
back at the same time? Yeah,
no
they all
kidding.
circle. They just hang out in thermals over top of the airport and just hang out. And then somebody will come on and say, "All right, sports class, task alpha is open at this time." And at 1 o'clock, if they like the conditions they're seeing, they'll leave and start task. If they don't like, they'll wait just a little bit longer and then start task when they think it's going to be optimized for them for the day.
So you could have like multiple aircraft. What do you guys call it? Aircraft, airplane? How do you sailplane? Gliders. Okay. You could have multiple gliders taking off at the same time for the same waypoint.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we have most of them will have what's called a FLARM in them. It's a TCAS, that's glider to glider TCAS.
Okay.
Traffic collision avoidance system. Some don't have it. Some the only clip avoidance system you have is your eyeballs. You got to be looking outside a lot.
Yeah.
But they'll have that, and then that tracker will actually pop up online, and you can go to glidertracker.de or Pure Track or WeGlide and look and go hit the live button, and you can actually watch the race live, and you can see all the airplanes, altitudes, airspeeds, everything. You can watch the race live.
That sounds really cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. You said that you guys are going to this one in Dallas. Go ahead and say a little bit more about that, but I'm going to put Eric's social links in the description too. So follow him and I'm sure he's going to be posting about it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be posting the whole time we're there. It's pretty cool. We have the gliders in a trailer, and we're going to leave Florida and just take 2 days to get there. We're going to just rent an Airbnb. Normally we would stay in a camper on the airport, but they're limited on spaces. So we're just going to get an Airbnb there. And then we're going to The next day, I want to get there a day early for him though, so we can get the glider assembled. It only takes 10 minutes to put it together.
Oh no,
And then, yeah, you think that's kind of crazy, isn't
that
it?
is
You just
insane. Yeah.
slide the wings together, two wing pins, hook the flight controls up, put the tail on, tape it off, boom, you're good to go. Positive control check, things like that. And so that way he can just fly there for a day and get to know the area. And then they'll have like 1 or 2 practice days, and then they'll have like 5 or 6 race days after that. So that'd be really cool if they have the actual race days.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and it's out of Midlothian, Texas, and people are always welcome at these events to come see them, and see the launches and the recovery when everybody's coming back at the same time. It's just imagine, Chicago O'Hare Airport in a little small town with one runway and gliders just stacked with no ATC.
Yeah.
It's all uncontrolled. Everybody's just, cutting and diving, and they're all flying these perfect patterns together. It's just the most beautiful, uncontrolled harmony you'll ever see.
Yeah, that sounds like the second week of aviation college. When the instructors give their planes off to the students and everybody's up in
Yeah.
pattern at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's controlled chaos. Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely, it is.
that sounds awesome. All right, Eric. Well, I have one final question that I ask everybody, and with your diverse background, it's going to be hard to guess. So,
Mhm.
if you could have any aircraft, glider, powered, jet, whatever you want, right? Money doesn't matter. It's already paid for. And if you could have it for personal use, what would it be and why?
Um, man, that's a tough question because there's so many avenues to take on this. I mean,
Yeah.
the gliders are so much fun. The 747 was great. I I can't say. I'm actually stumped because I mean, an old radial engine airplane like a Wilga or something like that. It would just
Yeah.
be cool to have. It goes back to what quality of life would be good for me and my wife and my kids and everybody to say, yeah,
Yeah. It's a
probably
tough one.
something with 2 engines though, maybe a Baron or something cool like that,
That would be awesome. Take all the
or a
family
King Air.
vacations you
King Air.
want.
As long as I didn't have to pay for fuel, I would 100% go with a King Air.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, all expenses are paid. You hit like
Yeah,
the triple lottery and you don't have to worry about money at all. So
I'll take that King Air 350 for that one then.
there you go. Yeah, that'd be a good one. You take the
Yeah.
family and the friends.
Well, and one thing too, the cost associated with soaring is a money saver for people who are in flight training. Get your glider private rating first, because you will finish your private powered at 40 hours, and quite a few of those hours you earn in a glider counts towards that. It's not all powered requirements. And when you go to do your instrument rating, the 50 hours cross country requirement, 40 of that can be done in a glider.
No kidding.
Yeah, and we're averaging $7 to $8 an hour for flight time.
Wow.
And then you start flying the tow plane, right? And you're building flight time like crazy. And that's why we know people are getting through for $29,000 through powered CFI, because you have experience, you have flight time, you have everything. I think my son, who is 20, is close to 800 or 900 hours.
Oh my, that's insane.
And we've paid almost nothing for it.
Yeah.
Because of the glider.
That is really cool.
He's a glider instructor, and it's he's racing in contests, and because he's under 25, SSA, Soaring State of America, will reimburse him 90% of the cost of the contest.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's
There's
insane
scholarships available too. If you go
Yeah.
to ssa.org, there's scholarships available that aren't going used every year, and the money's there.
Man, so you're telling me that I could have went back in time, learned how to fly gliders first, got better situational awareness,
Yeah.
learn these puzzle pieces that I've never thought of, get my private and instrument faster, and probably arguably been a better pilot in general. And I had no idea.
Well, do you have your commercial rating?
No, I stopped halfway through my commercial trading because life had different plans and I couldn't quite afford that anymore.
I don't know how that is. Okay,
Yeah.
well, do you have over 200 hours?
No, nope. I'm at right around 150-ish. I got private
if you have,
instrument.
I think it's if you have 200 hours total time or 100 flights. Maybe it's 100 hours. I have to look at the regs. You can get your glider commercial rating and get your CFI done super cheap and start making money.
That's insane.
Yes. And so another thing too is get a glider CFI before you do powered CFI. There's about a 40% failure rate on initial CFIs in powered airplanes. It's about 5 to 10% in gliders. If you
Wow.
have your initial CFI done in a glider, when you do powered, it's an add-on. So you're not doing the 8-hour oral. You've already done the FOI. All you're doing is just adding single engine on, just like an MEI or a double I. You're already a CFI.
These are all cheat codes, man. I don't know why they're
Yes.
not talking about these more. These are cheat codes to get your
the
ratings faster and cheaper.
The flight schools. The flight school will not tell you about this, or the instructors will mislead you because either they don't understand or they can't make money at it. Because any flight school is not in your best interest. They're for profit.
That's fair. That is 100% fair.
They've predicated rules. All these flight schools have predicated rules for this part 141 stuff so they can make more money.
Yep. Yeah, I went through a 141 school, and I enjoyed the training. I've flown with some people that did Part 61 that kind of scared me a little bit because their procedures weren't quite up to the level that we were trained. But that could be different for every school, Like I could have just had really good instructors, and but at the end of the day, going the route of the glider, just learning what I learned today, because I went from knowing zero about gliders other than we had one and I couldn't fly it because I was too fat.
Yeah.
To learning a lot about them and knowing that it's way cheaper to get it that way. It's way faster to get it that way. And I mean, you can it's cheat codes, guys. Use the cheat codes. Come on.
That's exactly it. So make sure you go get yourself in a glider in Missouri, and you need to let me know.
Yeah, I'm going to do that, man, because that sounds awesome.
It'd be a good time.
Tell us real quick what your socials are. I will put them in the description, on the screen, all of that stuff.
Yeah, you can just find me at Flyboy Soaring, BOYZ, FLYBOYZ Soaring on TikTok. And that's really pretty much all we have is just TikTok right now.
Awesome.
Flyboy Soaring is what our LLC is listed under. And yeah, it's a good thing, man.
Awesome.
If anybody wants shirts or hats, let us know. We'll mail them out to you.
There you go, man. Go check out Flyboys Soaring on TikTok. Reach out to Eric. They got hats, shirts. They got all kinds of stuff. And you're going to see some really cool content about soaring and gliding. And, hopefully you learned something, because I also learned something today. And now I'm kind of stoked for a whole new way of flying. So as always, folks. Oh, go ahead.
And we wear parachutes in the glider. So when you see the glider upside down, we have a parachute on. We're legal.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. That would be kind of scary, though, flying upside down in a non-powered aircraft. But that's just because I've never been upside down in general. I like to stay right side up. Motorcycles, airplanes, right side up. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Eric. And as always, guys, success starts with a positive attitude. Thanks for watching another episode of the Mo Air Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with somebody else. Follow Flyboys Soaring on TikTok. And as always, if you want to be a guest on the next episode, reach out to me at moairsales.com.